Hello there, and welcome to a video explaining a slightly different kind of build for a Sorcerer Healer in Elder Scrolls Online. Let me start with the basic premise of this character, which I'm calling Twilight, since Dots Gaming already took the name the Matriarch. The Sorcerer Healer has been buffed with the latest patch, Dragonhold, and the burst heal from this wonderful flappy pet, the Twilight Matriarch, is now very powerful. In fact, it's the single biggest heal in the game as far as I can tell from everything that I know about it. So this build centers around this bird, and also thinking, well, if we're mainly going to be using this bird to do insane amounts of healing, we don't need quite as much focus on other kind of heal over times and so forth. We do have them, but they're not the main focus, and that frees us up to do what I think the Sorcerer does perhaps better than other healing classes, which is damage. Okay, so this is a build that you should use, or you can use if you want, if you're looking to do a lot of healing and a lot of damage at the same time. Okay. It's not a meta build by any means. It's not designed for 12-man trials, but it's pretty darn good for 4-man dungeons and solo content. I think it shines really well, especially in the harder DLC veteran dungeons, where fights are more mobile and ground-based healing is less useful. Okay, so that's the basic premise of the build. Let me then move on to showing you the skills. Okay, so the main skill that we're using is the Twilight Matriarch. Okay, and as you can see from this tooltip, okay, once the pet is summoned, I can use its special ability for a reasonable amount of magicka, 3.5k magicka. And this will heal the bird itself and 2 other friendly targets for, and here's my tooltip, which will come on to some of the maths later, over 20k health. Okay, so for most people, DDs, that is all of their health. For a tank, it's probably a good half of their health. Okay, so and that's 2 targets, as well as the bird itself. Now, obviously, if you're healing the bird that much, and very regularly, it's not going to die even if it's being attacked by creatures. So this is really something that I think is very special about the Sorcerer class right now in terms of healing, is that it has this incredible access to a very good value for magicka heal. Okay, and we'll see in just a second how we get that up so high. The other skill that we're using, which synergizes very well with one of our gear sets, okay, is Empowered Ward. Okay, this gives me and the pet a big shield, okay, which is at 50% of my max health, capped off, for 10 seconds. And you'll see that we actually cast this more often than every 10 seconds. So basically all of the time I have a shield for half of my health, which makes me incredibly survivable, and it means even more that whatever damage is incoming to the pet doesn't kill it. On top of that, when I cast this, it grants minor intellect to me and all of my buddies within a 20-meter radius for 10 seconds, which increases our magicka recovery. So especially if the DDs are magicka users, and even the tank likes a bit of magicka for shielding and self-healing and so on, that's a really great skill in my opinion. This Bound Aegis has 2 uses. First of all, well slotted, my max magicka is increased and my resistances are increased slightly with minor resolve. But also, if I find myself in the thick of it and I have to block it at any moment, if I cast it, I actually go ahead and cast it, my block mitigation is increased by 40%. So it's a kind of an emergency button when I know that in 1 second, pardon me, but in 1 second time I'm going to need to block. Okay, so but it's mainly there for the max magicka, and it's a sorcerer ability, which we'll see triggers an interesting passive in just a short amount of time. This skill basically means that because I can get an extra 3,600 magicka instantly, and then an additional 2,400, that makes a total of 6,000 magicka and 10k health for just 2k stamina. If I am in any way running low on magicka, which I seldom do, I basically ensure that I've got another reserve I can dip into, and the stamina, the health health bonus of 10k is just a kind of bonus, really. It's not not something that I really worry about. This is a kind of a key offensive skill. Everyone knows this blockade of storms in an 18 by 12 area. All the enemies take shock damage every second, and if they're concussed, they're set off balance. Okay, which is a key element of the lightning damage ability. Our offensive ultimate shooting star, you can see I haven't even got this one leveled up, is on the bar because it's a mage's guild ability, which boosts our max magicka, but also it's a kind of a way of doing damage, and also getting kind of ultimate back. So when there's big trash pools, it's very, very cost efficient. Obviously elemental rage does more damage. That's doing like 7k a second. You could swap that in if you wanted to, but you'll see that I've got that there for a mage's guild passive, which we'll come on to in just a short while. On the what I call the back bar, because I'm not actually on it very much, okay, I have some heal over time spells that all healers will recognize. Radiating Regeneration, which heals up to 3 nearby allies for a fat amount of healing, and it's over 10 seconds. Okay, so you can pop this up every 10 seconds, or whenever you feel like you need to. I mean, basically this build is set up so that I rarely even need to use the other heal over times, but it's there. It's a fantastic skill. When there's less kind of mobility to the fight, this can be a very, very good way of making, or rather when there's more mobility to the fight, because it also has a range of 28 meters. You don't even have to look at them or anything like that. Classic Energy Orb. This is a nice heal over time, but the main thing is that the synergy from it means that people can get back their resources, either magic or stamina. Nice little boost. Very effective in fights that are relatively sort of what's the word I'm looking for, in one place, fixed stack and burn type situations. Very, very good. Less good in more mobile situations, but it's there as an option, and if a tank or a DD calls for an orb, they can get one. Combat Prayer, this is another heal, but the main thing about it is that it gives minor berserk and minor resolve to buff the resistance of the party and also their damage done. It lasts 8 seconds. We should be casting this as often as we can, really, basically. The main sorcerer ability on this bar is the Power Surge. This is quite useful too. It gives my weapon damage and spell damage increased by 20% for 33 seconds, which is a very long time. And then any time I do a critical heal, it triggers a further heal, whereby we get an extra 3k health out of it, and this can go off every 3 seconds during that 33 seconds. So there's a potential there for 10 critical heals being even bigger. Okay, and this is up, should be up as often as you can, as long as you can get it. A really, really great player, better than me, might be able to keep this up all the time. So those are the main skills that we're using. We'll have a look a little bit at how they interact now with the passives. Okay, so I won't go too much into these ones, but Blood Magic, when I hit an enemy with a directly applied Dark Magic ability, yeah, we don't have that one. Really, it's not really applicable. But this one is very useful. When I cast a dark magic ability, such as Dark Conversion on my front bar, I grant Minor Prophecy to the group, increasing our spell critical, which basically then drives up damage even further. Okay. We restore Magicka when one of our pets is killed or unsummoned. That basically almost never happens, but if it does, you know, we get a nice little bit of Magicka back before we summon it again. And then here we are with Power Stone. This reduces the cost of my ultimate abilities by 15%, which is pretty useful overall. Health and stamina recovery increased by 20% because I have the bird slotted, and the max health is also increased, giving me that extra bit of survivability. Within Storm Calling, we have extra Magicka recovery. We have an increase of shock damage, which is something we make use of. And here's another interesting one. My weapon and spell damage is increased by 2% for each sorcerer ability slotted, rewarding me for using my class abilities. So on my front bar, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 sorcerer abilities, giving us a bonus of 8% to spell damage, spell and weapon damage, which is pretty useful as well. Okay, then the Shock Staff heavy attacks will damage nearby enemies for 100% of the damage done, which means this is a very good reason to actually use heavy attacks, especially with the level of max Magicka and spell damage that we have. As you'll see, these abilities of the Destruction Staff ignore 10% of the enemy spell resistance, and we have a increased chance to apply the concussed effect from the lightning damage. Finally, because I have the lightning staff, it increases the damage I do with area of effect abilities by 8%. Okay, so that's basically where everything comes from. Now, this seems like as good a time as any to look at the gear, because one of the sets actually works around that kind of damage. Okay, so if you look at this set, I don't have it golded out yet, I'm not that rich, but look at the 5-item bonus. When you cast a damage shield ability, you call down a fragment of Trinimag that heals you and your allies for almost 5k health and damages enemies for just over 4k magic damage in a 5-meter radius around me. This effect can occur once every 5 seconds. Now, what this enables me to do, as you'll see when we get onto the gameplay, is get right up in the face of the enemies, shield myself, heal my allies, and do damage to all of the creatures that are in that radius, and that's quite a lot. And because this effect can occur every 5 seconds, it means that I should be casting Empowered Ward, which is the shield ability that triggers it, every 5 seconds. Okay, so I've constantly got this damage shield on myself, and the pet. I've constantly got minor intellect, increasing Magicka recovery for my group, and very, very frequently we are healing everyone around for another big heal, and doing a fair bit of damage as well. Okay, so this is a not very often used set, as far as I know. I've never even heard of anyone else using it, but I came across it and thought, well, this goes well with a sorcerer because they have such a powerful shield, and I feel like this is a really good skill in PvE and in PvP when you're up in the enemy's face. The other set that we're running, no surprises, being a sorcerer that has a pet, is Necropotence. This gives us a humongous amount of max Magicka. Okay, we get like more than 3k from the 2, 3, and 4-item bonus, and then another 3k from the 5-item bonus when we have a pet active, which is going to be like all of the time. To help the party with the healing, we're using the Symphony of Blades guys, which increases our healing done even further, and also if they're under 50% of their primary resource, we grant them resources back. This effect can occur every 18 seconds, and it's based off their highest maximum resources. So tanks will get stamina, presumably they have it slightly higher. Stamina DDs will get stamina, and Magicka DDs will get Magicka. Very good healing set overall. There are other things that you could wear. Just in my kind of inventory right now, I have Ice Heart when I want to have even more survivability and don't quite need as much to provide as much resources. But you could wear pretty much any really good healing set, monster helm set that you like for those two pieces. I just like Symphony of Blades because pretty much everything else that I'm doing is kind of non-meta and based around just doing an obscene amount of healing with one skill and damage with 2 or 3 very simple skills. I feel like I should this is where I should give the party as much resources as I can, so I've gone with the most generous healing set in that regard. Okay, so we've got a lightning staff on the front bar, and I've gone for powered because this is my primary healing bar, which will increase the healing I do by almost 10% there. I've gone for a shock damage enchantment on it. On the back bar, where other healers spend a lot of their time here, I don't spend so much. Again, powered, and an absorb magicka enchantment if I feel like I need to do a heavy attack just to get that little bit more magicka back. Okay, but you can see that not everything I have is golded out. The jewelry here, I still need to spend the money, spend the gold to get those increased, and I haven't really touched the enchantments. Probably I will be swapping these out for spell damage enchantment glyphs, because honestly I don't feel like I need the recovery at all. I don't ever seem to run low, and if I do run really low, I can use the dark conversion and get a whole load back. So that is the build in a nutshell. I just want to show you what happens when we've got a spell power potion going, and a very interesting thing happens. We drink the potion, and then we look here, and the matriarch special ability after using the potion is only 734 magicka for a few seconds. I haven't worked out yet what causes that, but it means that if you just after you've drunk that potion, that ability, which I think is fairly cheaply priced anyway, becomes just insanely cheap. The potions are probably worth using even when you don't run out, just so that you can keep the spell damage high and so forth. But if you ever do feel like you need to get a really cheap heal out of it, you can obviously take advantage of that feature, whatever it may be. Okay. If we look at my champion points, you can see here I haven't even applied all of them. There's more other things I could do. Plus, I'm not even 500 CP yet. I'm at 497. I used to play in the North American server and had a bunch there, but I had to start again, so this is somewhat lower. But just looking at the ones that I've applied at the moment, no surprises. I've gone for a heavy amount into Arcanist and Tenacity to increase my magicka recovery and the amount that I get back from my fully charged heavy attacks. I'll probably be continuing to pump most of my resources into those. In the blue tree, we can see that I don't have full points into Blessed, as you might expect. Once I kind of pump a whole load more in there, that means that the healing I'm doing is going to be even higher, so the numbers you've seen will increase. But at the moment, I want to make sure that my shock damage is increased, my critical damage and critical healing is increased, and then also... No, okay, that was another character I guess I was thinking of. But yeah, so as I get more CP, all of these things are going to go up. But as it is, I'm very happy with it anyway. It works very well, allows me to clear all the content that I want to clear. In the red tree, this is kind of a classic, just over 20% reduction of damage from direct damage attacks, increasing my spell resistance. And then, shared out Hardy, Elemental Defender, and Thick Skin to give me some additional resistances from physical, poison, disease, elemental, and damage over time, respectively. As I said, you can play around with those a little bit. They're not essential to the build. I've got some that I need to apply and haven't done at this stage. That's no big drama. And a 9k shield keeps me alive pretty much all the time, and obviously also has that interesting effect in combat. So we'll see examples of that now. Okay, so the things to look for here is the Trinimac proc, which you've just seen, a big green circle on the floor, which is used whenever I cast my shield every few seconds. Okay, this is doing, as you can see from my DPS meter in the top left hand corner, a sizable amount of damage, and I'm really not having to do very much else. I think I'm dropping down a wall of elements sometimes, and I'm using my heavy attack with my lightning staff, but the shield alone does a substantial amount of damage. Other things to look for is probably easiest to see if you actually watch the bird itself. It's there flapping away, and at different times, it's gone slightly out of the screen there, it will kind of pulse with its energy. Like right about now, I've just noticed that one of the guys dropped to 50% health, and with just a little flick, bang, he's back up to full. So you can see, here we go again, almost empty, that guy, and I healed him back to full in a very short amount of time. We've got a low health tank here. It really gives him the kind of the confidence to just go ahead and do whatever he wants to do, knowing he's going to get those heals. So anytime I see someone's health dropping much at all, okay, there's another guy back up to full. Really, I'm just having a blast. I'm playing very casually, if you like. It's not a particularly refined gameplay that I'm using. I'm not a skilled DD, nor am I someone that wants to worry too much about, you know, doing a million different things. But you can see that my my AoE damage from the Trinimac proc and my wall of elements and my heavy attacking isn't too bad, it allows me to focus on just kind of my mobility and really just doing what I want and having fun. So I hope that you find the same when you play it, and if you're a better player than I am, you'll probably get bigger numbers. You'll get more damage because you can put more things down. Here I am about to get minced before the other guys figure out they need to interrupt. And you'll get bigger heals too. You'll see now I'm about to use my ultimate and generate some pretty good numbers here with big AoE burst damage, sort of hitting 50k spread out at one point amongst the mobs. Obviously it falls down the longer the fight goes on, but not pretty decent burst given the max magicka that I'm dealing with. And here we are dealing with the sort of later adds right before the final boss. Again, anytime the teammates' health dips below sort of 60%, boof, they're back up to full with a little flick of my mouse button, and I can add a little bit of damage on the top. You know, I think sort of 15 to 20k, not single target obviously, but AoE damage from the Trinimac procs, the wall of elements, and the heavy attacks from the lightning stuff is decent really, and I'm wading right in. Sometimes when I feel a little bit threatened, I'm popping my block mitigation on top of my shield, but usually I can kind of go where I want and be a very mobile sort of damage healer, if you want to call it that, as a sort of semi-hybrid. I'm not doing high-end DPS by any means, but it's pretty good. One other thing I should say, I am a Breton. This basically really assists recovery, but it has to be said that if you were high elf, then the big heal would be even bigger still, so it's kind of more or less a trade-off. Khajiit are also very good with their crit bonus, but basically this build I feel is not at all race dependent, and you can be anything that you like. I've gone for the mage. This is maybe a controversial choice. You could definitely use other Mundus and still use this build idea, but we're pushing our max magicka as high as we can so that our big burst heal is as big as it can be, and therefore I've gone for the mage. Okay, which is the reason why we also use the bound Aegis and then the food. The food that I'm using is called, Artaeum Pickled Fish Bowl, which is the biggest boost to max magicka that you can get. Just over 5k max magicka for 2 hours. Also a decent buff to our health as well. Sometimes in less challenging content I use the melon based parmesan pork, which gives marginally less of those two things, and lasts about half the time. All in all, it really doesn't matter. As you can see, my food just ran out. Okay, so we're now going to eat the, whatever it was called, Artaeum Pickled Fish Bowl, and you can see that when my max magicka stabilizes out, we are just below 52k max magicka, which is why we get that over 20k heal from the bird, which is what it's scaling off of that. Other Munda stones you could use, by the way, is the ritual, but I tested it with this particular build, and I was getting a bigger heal and more damage off of the mage than I was using the ritual Munda stone. But that is the build in a nutshell. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you find it useful, and you'll consider using a Sorcerer Healer at some point.